Welcome to another episode of Surround Yourself with Greatness. And today I'm surrounded by greatness with an amazing person. She's a person who I'm happy to call a dear friend. I've had the pleasure of working with her in developing an amazing game that we're going to be talking about today. But overall, she's an amazing person, big heart, really focused on raising her kids and just doing good things for the world. Gena, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm just really happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me. And it's always great to see you, Kuda, for that matter. So I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Right. So we met when we were both taking a public speaking course, and we were learning the ins and outs of being great communicators on stage. And I think through that experience, we were able to then just form a natural friendship. And you learned about what I do with building businesses online, and also I learned about the project you're working on with Off a Coffee Game. So we're going to talk about that in a minute. But before we even get there, can you just share with me a little bit about your journey? One of the things that I found quite interesting about you is, your schooling in Mexico and then becoming this educational entrepreneur in Texas. So can you just share a little bit about your journey and how you got to be where you are today?
Well, okay. So a few things. So just like you said, I went to school in Mexico. So first of all, my parents don't speak any Spanish whatsoever. And they sent me to school in Mexico. So I crossed the border every day for 10 years. And
why? Was because it was cheaper? What was the reason?
No, my mom wanted her kids to go to a Montessori school. In the school, because I grew up in El Paso, and the school was in Juarez. And she was a very forward-thinking mother. And she said, great, I'll send my kids to Mexico. Typically, it's the other way around. But I can tell you so those are big influences in my life. One, going to
And how old were you when you started going to school in Mexico?
I was 2 to 12. And so, crossing the border it's not that a big of a deal, but it takes time, right? Yeah, so that's what I did. And so I've always, my whole life has always been bilingual, the ability to talk to anyone. But then when I came to the States and started going to school in the States, I realized, oh, not everybody has that. And as you've read, I'm pretty adventuresome. At one point, I took up rock climbing and spent 10 years rock climbing and traveling the world. When I went to college, that's really what my focus was on. And
wow.
I know it's so I would save money and then I would travel and go rock climbing. And I wanted to get out of school and I would take Spanish classes to lighten my load. So once I got out of college, I just decided, I was like, well, I'll just teach people Spanish. And I had a bicycle, and pretty much with $5 in a bicycle, I just started making up my own methodology. And when I think about Montessori really teaches you to listen to your inner self and to follow that. So most people who've done Montessori are very creative thinkers. They think outside the box, although that just seems normal to me. So I did that. So I started that business, training adults. And I started in coffee shops. So I called it Spanish over coffee. And I did that and eventually had several employees, both in.
So if I was a person who doesn't drink coffee, then I couldn't learn Spanish from you then. Right?
No, you can still come. You don't have to buy coffee. You can have
but
water.
You said you were teaching Spanish over coffee.
Well, I mean, that was the name of the business at the time.
Got it. Yeah, I'm just trying to be funny, but yeah, keep going.
Okay. But I think, so I'm trying to tie it into what I'm doing now. But my commitment then, and always has been, and even to this day, was to leave people speaking to anyone, anytime, anywhere, and learning from every opportunity. And what often gets in the way, even for people learning Spanish or just communication in general, is people's fears. So before people would take my class, I would reorient them and I would have them give up their fears, like fear of, I don't want to look stupid, I don't want to offend someone, which it's kind of interesting because those are similar fears of what people just have in general talking to people normally. And I just happened to use Spanish at that time to have people like be connected. So I did that for about 17 years. And it just came a point where I wanted to do something different. And I was kind of going through a life change. I was getting through a divorce, and I started meditating. And during that meditation, I asked myself, what's next? And the voice in my head said, build a game. I was like, oh, okay, sounds great. So I told myself I gave myself 3 years, and now I'm on year 9. And I just started working on it. I didn't necessarily have a plan. I just literally started working on it, met people along the way. Originally, so this is really my second game. My original game was an embodiment of my prior work.
Right.
And people would come and play that game, but you needed to play with a native bilingual speaker. And I realized I often was providing that person. So I changed it to where you could play in English and in Spanish. I produced 1 copy of that particular game. And then I have some stories to go along with that. But at the last minute, I played it. Actually, I got set up on a blind date by my ex-husband. And so,
wow.
And the guy was like, he was product development for REI, and he was traveling Asian camping. And so we met up, we played my game with some of his friends. And at the end of that, we both came to the same conclusion. We're like, wow, this is a great game. Take out the Spanish because it's getting in the way. And then that's how Over Coffee was born. And I would say, so then I produced, a certain amount of those games, and not really knowing what I had. But then, okay, and you know this about me. I'm an introvert. So to get out there and it's one thing to produce it, it's another thing to sell it, right?
Right.
So I was like, oh my gosh, I have to talk to people. I mean, even though I encourage people to talk to people. So I decided, okay, I'm going to have a monthly potluck at my house. And at first I invited my friends, but your friends can only go so far.
Right.
So I started.
Unless if you have a lot of friends. Gena, you strike me like the person who has a bunch of friends.
I think I've made more. I do have a lot of friends. I've made more friends along the way, right?
Okay.
Like, it's not. I do have friends, but there's only so many that you can have really deep relationships with.
Right. The well gets dry. Let's just say that.
Yeah. So, so what I started to do is I started to invite anybody, and literally I'd be at a coffee shop, and this person would sit next to me. And knowing that I had this potluck coming and I needed people to come play, I would turn to them like a weirdo and say, hey, I know I just met you, but I create a game. Would you like to come to my house? I do a monthly potluck. And they would say yes. And I'd give them my number, my address, a little text invite, and they would show up. And they would bring other people with them. And so, anyhow, I can
That's good.
Yeah, no.
So you're building your brand from the grassroots, getting strangers to come into your home. I don't know how I feel about that, but
I recommend it.
Gena.
I recommend it.
And you've started really building this game. So one of the things that I like about your game, because my wife and I have had a chance to play it and to even help you develop it, to launch it and whatnot, is that it helps foster deep connections, because some of the questions that are in the game really enable someone to really dig deep and share something about them that's a little bit below the surface. So first things first, do you have a game with you? Do you have one with you?
I got a game with me here.
So I think it'll be great to maybe talk a little bit about the game. What are the different things that come with it? Because for people who are watching, I think it'll be great for them to actually get to see the product. And then if you like the product, the link to Amazon is going to be in the description. So feel free to click the link in the description to go grab one of Gena's games. But anyway, Gena, walk us through your game.
Okay, so first I'm going to tell you what's in the game. So you have the instructions, but the main thing, and it opens all the way. Just want to tell people that. But more than anything, what you need to know is when you start off, you start with the icebreaker. Because you probably, like you said, there's a variety of different topics from like marriage and divorce, politics, more books. There's lighter, like medium, easy, and harder topics. But you always start with the icebreaker. And as you can see, there's 4 subtopics, okay? So I call it there'll be some person that's a storyteller. And then, and I just want to show you, here's the topic cards, which I think are really cool. I love the illustrations. Just like I said. So
they look quite interesting. What was the inspiration?
I mean, I love art. So I think all products should look good. And so I looked for a great artist and I found one. And when I told her, I said, I really want all people to see themselves in the game, like when they play it. So as you'll see, so hold on one second. So each topic, like for example, marriage and divorce, it has 4 subtopics and one person will choose to answer that. And then all the other players, so the game has 100 verb cards. So as I said, this original game was bilingual. And that's why we have these top 100 verbs, except for now they're all in English. And so this is what the back looks like. But as you can see, I want all people to be able to, you know, there's all these different characters in it. Hold on.
Which one is your favorite character?
Oh, my favorite character.
And do the characters have names yet? Or we need to...
They don't have names. They don't have names.
Maybe one day.
I like this character. Actually, the truth is, if people ask me who I am, so in the game, there's a naked, you'll see on each card, there's a naked bird lady.
So that's you?
That's who I am. I'm the naked bird lady. Which my kids, we used to have like nipples and belly buttons on there, but we took them off. I didn't think the American.
You needed to keep it PG, right? You needed kids to be able to play it.
Well, it was more like I just knew not everybody could tolerate that. And then my kids, they were young and they're like, Mom, I don't want you to become the naked bird lady, please. So when you play the game though, Kuda, what's interesting is everybody will have 3 random verb cards, okay? So when I share or anybody shares, the next player, their only job is to ask a follow-up question. And as a storyteller, I'll answer. The next player will ask another follow-up question based on what we're asking. And then you do that a 3rd time, right? Then after that, you move on to the next storyteller. And so what's interesting for me about that is, I mean, there's several things that I find the game's teaching me, but what I've found is a lot of, I mean, you've had this experience, Kuda, when we say, how was your weekend? Great. Or you share some great experience. You're like, that's awesome. Or we try to fix a problem. And I would say those comments close down conversation. Where when you ask a follow-up question, it opens up conversation. But in addition to that, people often, so have you ever had somebody ask a question with an agenda behind it?
All the time, like what you're trying to do right now.
Yeah, okay, yeah, you can say that. It has an agenda. But with the random verbs, you can't, it's much difficult to ask a question with an agenda. So it truly has to come from curiosity.
Awesome.
And I guess the last thing I would say about that is because your job playing is to ask a question, you're listening, but you're listening at a whole nother level, knowing that you have to use one of these random verbs.
Right. So let me just go through the flow.
Okay.
So someone picks a topic.
We can play
on that topic card, there's like 4 questions. And then I pick one of the 4 questions, right?
Yes.
And then the other people who are playing the game then have to ask a question based on the question that I've selected based on the verb that they have. Is that correct?
One of the 3 verbs they have.
Okay, one of the 3 verbs they have. So what that enables the person who's going to answer the question is, you're now going to have to think about how to answer that based on the verb that you're giving. So now you're going a little bit a layer deeper in answering the question. And that's why your game allows for people to foster deeper connections. Got it. What have people said to you once they've played the game? I'm curious to just get a sense as to people come to your home for game night, they play the game, and then after the game, are they saying things like, "Oh my God, this was the best thing since sliced bread," or they're like, "Gena, we're not coming back to your house again"? Like, what has been some of the feedback you got?
This is kind of shocking to me, for that matter, too. One woman came and she said, "I felt my soul was recharged." I mean, who the hell says that?
Wow.
Yeah, like she literally said that.
So your game recharges souls?
Yeah, I swear to God. I swear to God. I'm not kidding.
You should put that as part of your marketing.
Well, I
would literally take that and trademark it and put it in a marketing campaign and do a TikTok campaign around that. Hey, do you want to play a game that recharges your soul? Guess what? I have it. It's an attention grabbing, but I like that. I think that's solid and it speaks.
That's one. Wait, here's another one. Often they say, "Oh my God, I had a real conversation." Which sounds weird, but the truth is we don't have real conversations anymore. Yeah, and people are just, bottle cooler talk, right? Where you're just kind of like, "Hey, how was the game? Yeah, it was great. Did you see the touchdown?" Exactly. Pretty much. I had one woman come and she, total stranger, I didn't know her from Adam, and she said, "I talked about something I haven't spoken about in 20 years. Which I think is pretty impressive. Yeah, 20 years. She's like, "Only my husband knows about it." And I wasn't at the table, so I don't know what she said, but it was clear to me, like she felt what I think, because only people can ask follow-up questions, and very quickly the game becomes deep. You have this sense of safety where you get to know yourself at a different level and know other people at a different level. Okay. Got it. That's interesting. Have you received any interesting feedback about it? Maybe some that's not so positive, or anything that was unexpected? I'm trying to think if there's any I did have, okay, this was a little unexpected for me. So since I was practicing inviting anyone and everyone, like literally from the guy from Discount Tire Company, because I had a flat tire, he came, by the way. Oh, really? I invited my Uber driver. I mean, this is like, I was getting out there. I invited my mailman, my baker, the baristas, all those have gone well. But so now I'm dating, okay, but like actually met somebody that I really like. But prior to that, I was on Bumble and I was like, well, what the hell? I'll invite them. Who cares? Have them come to game night. And that did not go over well. So you were inviting inviting matches you had on Bumble to game night? Yeah, I was like, why don't you just come to game night? These guys didn't like it. So that was a little surprising. They didn't come to game night, but it was just like they were offended that I invited them. And I was like, all right, well, that clearly doesn't work. Well, maybe they had one thing on their mind and it probably wasn't game night. Oh no, probably not. All right, well, that's cool. So when did you launch this product? When did it go live? When did it go live? Well, what, the version on Amazon or? Yeah. Mid-December. Yeah, like it's very recent. Very recent. Right. Yeah. So guys who are watching, this is still a new game. So please support Gena. I've played it myself and I think it's actually quite awesome. So perfect for you to buy it now and be ready for summer, right? When people are coming over and things like that. And if you do buy it, leave a review. I mean, it's always good. And I'm a small business owner myself, and the importance of those reviews on Amazon is like game changing. So be honest, be candid in your feedback.
But like I said, leaving a review, I think will really help Gena out. So in what other ways does Over Coffee Games help develop, empathy and understanding amongst the players? Are there any memorable experiences or stories that have emerged from, some of the game nights you've had?
Yeah, several. Okay, so remember that time I told you I played with that blind date?
Mm-hmm.
So this is one of the things that kind of took me by surprise. So there's one card in here called touchy subjects, and you choose between like gun control, talk about abortion.
Is there any politics in there as well? Or no?
Yeah, politics is in there too.
Mm-hmm.
But so this particular, I'm going to tell you two stories. So this one story, I remember this guy from the Northwest, total stranger, and he shared he was against abortion. Like that was his initial answer.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of caught me by surprise, right? Because that's not my stance. And but because I had 3 random verbs and we had to ask follow-up questions, by the time we got to the third follow-up question, I heard his view. Like he had shared that he grew up very poor, that his mom had several abortions, that she shared them with him when he was young. And so hearing that story, I could totally understand why he felt that way. And so instead of feeling distance or like he's wrong, I felt compassion for the guy, like where he was at. And it made it clear to me that a lot of times our points of view are, it's from our personal experience. So that was one. The other one I had that I remember that I thought was quite interesting. So I wasn't at this particular table, but there was, and a lot of these were strangers or people I just met who were playing. They just met each other. So it was 6 players. One guy was Black, conservative, Republican, military background. Okay. Okay. Another woman, she was a professor at a local university, originally from New York, but for fun does homeless people's hair. Okay. I mean, just totally different. My mailman, who's openly gay, my like real estate agent, another real estate agent that I met, and I can't remember the third person, I mean the fourth person, but the point is they came from every walks of life. And it turned out, so when I asked about that night, at the end of the night, I asked like, how was the game? This one woman stood up and she said, you know what? It was so clear to me that we're so completely different. Yet I can tell you, I love these people. And later she shared that they actually drew 2 politics cards while they were at that table.
And one was Republican and one was Democrat?
Oh, no. Like, yeah, well, several were. Like, they're just totally different. And I think so often we don't listen to each other. And maybe I'm oversharing here, but I think the other thing, because I have to ask myself, like, why is this possible? Like, a lot of times this can't happen in real life, but why is it possible in the game? And I think it's because, so you have your topic card, right? Let's say it's politics. Nobody at that table is going to answer that question. All they can do is ask you a follow-up question using one of their verb cards. So, and when you can only ask a question, you're not going to have the opportunity to answer that question in the moment. You really can't. You have to set your opinion aside to truly listen, because you can't hold your opinion, strong opinion, and truly listen to another at the same time. And for me, that's been really beneficial because I've used it in my own life. Like when I found that I was butting heads with somebody, I remind myself, okay, let me ask this person 3 follow-up questions. And tomorrow I'll tell him my side. But for the moment, I just need to hear his side. Right.
And I think right now, it's something that we as a society need to get better at. I watch some of these political debates, and it's going to be very interesting, especially now in 2024 being an election year. But I find it quite interesting how sometimes people are just trying to get their point across. They're not taking a moment to be empathetic and listen to someone else's view. It doesn't necessarily mean that if someone holds an opposing view, you shouldn't take the time to listen. Sometimes when you take a moment to listen, you actually learn something.
Yeah.
And it might not change your point of view, which is okay, but you can learn something new and it can help you with your understanding and appreciation of other people's points of view, which I think from a societal perspective is super important because we're all different. We've all gone through different backgrounds and challenges and things like that. And that has somewhat shaped our views in life.
Yeah.
But we never should forget the interconnectedness of mankind. We're all connected. We all need each other, right?
We do.
Because that's just the way the world is made, right? If I own a coffee shop, I need the coffee drinker to come in and drink my coffee. As a coffee drinker, I need the barista to make my coffee. So it's just the way the world works. We're just all interconnected. China needs the US needs China. But we might have different points of views, but it's important for us to be able to appreciate, acknowledge, and just, align people's points of view, but with a form of respect during the dialogue and not trying to speak over everybody. So
the other thing I would add there, Kuda, is a lot of times we think our opinions are formed. And when you have different, like when people ask your questions, like it's in the conversation, because what you believe is never solid. Like it always has an opportunity to morph and change and the conversation to move forward. And I believe we need that. And I really, just like you said, we all need each other. I really believe that, a lot of mental health, a lot of loneliness, a lot of that is just us being isolated. Like I often tell my kids, there's nothing more, the person in front of you is the most important person in this moment. Mm-hmm. It's not your friends on Facebook. It's not, that person you met. It's the person right here, right now. And right. I think that's really missing in today's world. We take it for granted.
That is true. Now you've launched the game. It's live. Okay. It's in the marketplace. Looking ahead, what are some of the aspirations you have about Over Coffee Games? And are there any upcoming projects you have? Anything that is in the lab that's going to show up pretty soon?
I don't know if it's going to show up pretty soon, but I would love to do a citywide event. I think it would be awesome.
So like the whole city of Houston?
The whole city. And I don't know how to do that quite yet. I have an intention to write.
You can start with the mayor.
Yeah, I'm going to write the mayor. Yeah. Actually, Houston has a new mayor. Turns out you can go meet him and talk to him. So
you're referring to Mayor Turner?
No, not Mayor Turner. We have a new mayor. I think it's Whitmire. Starts with a W.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. We just got a brand new mayor. So
perfect timing. Go play a game of coffee with your new mayor. A game of Over Coffee Games over coffee with your new mayor, and let's see what happens. You never know.
I mean, they have these events. I forget. There's white something or other where people come together for dinners in different cities, and then they have another flip one that's a black something like. Anyhow, the point being, I want to do something like that, but with Over Coffee Games. Right. So that's fun. And then I'd love for the game to be translated in other languages and that I'm able to sell it in other countries. Yeah. So those are a few of my aspirations at the moment.
That's good. So there might be people who are watching who are maybe aspiring entrepreneurs, and they might be like, oh my goodness, I have this idea, but I don't really know what to do. Maybe it's a card game. Maybe it's something else. What advice would you give to an aspiring entrepreneur who wants to create a business? It could be like yours or just generally any business, but really with a key tenet that your business brings, which is fulfilling a deep human need. And what your business does, it fulfills the deep human need for connection.
Yeah.
So I really want to be specific there in terms of the type of business that this aspiring entrepreneur would be creating. So what pieces of advice would you give this person?
If it was creating a deep human need? That's you want
If they were creating a business that fulfills a deep human need, that's the question.
That's a difficult question to answer with that one tenet in there for me, because and the reason why, Kuda, is I'm a real believer in following what calls to you. So I really believe, like, like one of my values, or if I'm inspired, I say yes. I don't ask questions. It's the same thing with the game. It's not logical to say, hey, I'm going to build a card game, even though I don't play games. I've never designed a card game. So I don't look to logic. I really just say yes. And I throw my hat over the wall. The other thing I would say too is, so that would be my first advice. The other thing is to stick with it. Because being an entrepreneur, or yourself, a purpose entrepreneur, isn't that what you?
Purposepreneur.
Purposepreneur. I really like that, by the way. You have to stay present to what you're committed to. I often write down like what's working and not focus on what's not working, because it reminds me of my successes and that keeps me going. But also, it's staying in the game over time. It's not going to be an overnight thing. So there's moments which I've said to myself, it's like I have to let go of the shore that I know. Like, I knew Spanish, I knew how to train adults. And then there comes a moment where if you want to go further, you kind of have to still let go and not be able to see the shore in front of you. But you keep sticking with it. So I swim, I'm a swimmer. So I think about that when I'm swimming. I'm like, I'm letting go of the shore. I can't see the shore yet, but I'm going to stick with it. And, but now I feel like I can kind of see the shore coming.
Right. That's good. Well, what about if it's just a regular business? Because I understand that by adding the deep human need might make the question a little tough. But what about if it's just someone who wants to create a business? What advice would you give that aspiring entrepreneur?
I would tell them, do it. I mean, that's what I would say. I was like, if it calls to you, do it. I love.
You sound like someone who works at Nike. Just do it.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I'm an adventurer. Okay. I can't help it. Like,
you climb mountains. You climb rocks.
I rock climb. This year, my poor kids, I took them mountain biking and I made them hike 14 miles. And when they were little, I'd make them walk in the rain. And,
did you ever bump into like a mountain lion or like wildlife while you're out and about?
Yeah, I did a safari on horseback, and we were charged by a lion.
Like a mountain lion?
No, a real lion.
So this should have been maybe like in Africa.
Yeah, it was in Africa.
Yeah, Kenya?
It was in Botswana.
So what did you guys do when the lion came?
Oh, in that moment? Oh my gosh. Well, so the deal when we ride horses is, first of all, only food runs in Africa. So you never even if a lion's coming towards you, you don't run. You have to hold your horse. So our horses are all bumping into each other. What was scary is the guide's horse reared up and fell over. So in my head, I'm like, okay, there goes the guy with the gun. But then he stood up and the lion stopped. And then he laughed. And I thought to myself, this guy is insane. He's like an adrenaline junkie. But so yeah, you don't run. And I tell my kids the same thing. When we go backpacking, I go, hey, here's the deal. You got to be really clear. If a bear shows up, you never run, ever. And they're like, okay, mommy.
Wow.
So.
That's
By the way, if we had played the game, Kuda, I would have, one of these questions is like, describe the greatest adventure you ever had. And
that would have been it.
Yeah, that would have been it. And then you would ask me follow-up questions about that using your verb cards.
All right, cool. So if people want to connect with you, or if they want to connect with your business, how do they do that?
So they can connect with me through my website, overcoffeegames.com. And they can send me an email directly at gena@overcoffeegames.com. And then of course
Amazing.
you can buy the game on Amazon, and you'll have that link in your show notes.
So I want to make this a little bit exciting.
Okay.
So, and no, this is for the viewers. So the first person to drop a comment on this YouTube video, I will reach out to you personally, and we'll get your address, and we'll buy an Over Coffee game card game for you on Amazon and send it your way. So you can just comment, hey, I really like the interview, or whatever you want to comment. Yeah. But the first comment, in fact, to actually make it interesting, Gena, let's ask a question that they answer, because we want it to be someone who's actually watched it all the way till here, because someone could just comment without having gotten to this part. So what question would you want the person to answer in the comment?
Ooh, okay. Well, I wonder if we should have them ask a follow-up question. So I'm going to give you
whatever you want to do. So
that's what I want to do. That's what I want to do. Okay. So here's the 3 verbs. So we have help, feel, and set.
Okay. Help, feel, and set. And then what are they supposed to put in the comments? What are the instructions?
Hold on, wait. I'm going to answer one of these subtopics. So values. Okay. I'm going to answer one of these parts, or do you want to answer it yourself?
No, the person has to comment, right? So you ask the question and you answer, and then they will comment.
They're going to create the question using one of those 3 verbs. So here is, here's a question. It says, what do you value in your romantic relationships or close friendships? And for me, that is somebody being open, honest, and vulnerable. And when I say honest, this is what I mean. Not only telling the truth, but also saying what you're not saying.
Okay. So you guys have heard Gena's answer. Feel free to follow up with your questions in the comments. The first one, definitely you're going to get a game. Maybe we'll do it with the second one or the third one. You never know. So even if someone has already commented, don't stop, because I think it'll be great to just get some interaction going here. And maybe Gena and I will be generous, and you guys could get some games for you to play. So help, free, and set. No, help, feel, and set, right? Those are the 3?
Yeah. Help, feel, and set.
Okay. There you have it. Gena.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
There's one thing you can't. Okay, there's one thing in the rules that you don't know this yet, Kuda. If you can't create a question using one of your verb cards, you can ask, create your own question. But ideally, you want to create your question using one of those 3 verb cards.
All right. Well, to keep it simple, have them just use one of those 3, right? Because we're just going to be sifting through the comments, and it's not like we're playing live. So we're looking forward to seeing what the comments are going to be. And Gena, thank you so much for joining me here on Surround Yourself with Greatness. I wish you success. And thank you so much for creating this amazing game that gets to help people foster deeper connections. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Kuda.